Manual recording will now start.
Golf Victor Alpha 1194. Just running red lights, no big deal. Good morning, television neighbors. So, today's topic is going to be manners and politeness. What better place to talk about manners and politeness than in a rush hour commute? Today, I'm expecting it to be a little bit heavy on the freeway because there's another freeway about 5 miles to the west of here that sometimes I take. I think I might have taken it in a couple of my vlogs. And it can be a little, it's pretty backed up today. I don't know what the problem is, but there's a problem downtown and it's backing up traffic all the way up north here. I'm about 11 miles out of the downtown area where I work, and it looked like it was probably backed up about 8 miles or so from here. So we're likely to see, what I've noticed on days with heavier than average traffic is on most days, people seem to be mostly well behaved. This is something that my dad told me about when I was little. He noted that, there are a lot of people going around, so I'm kind of looking for an opportunity to squirt out here because I really think traffic's going to be a little messed up here. I don't want to get over to 315, but I think I might try an alternate route today. 8:39 a.m. is my ETA from Waze right now, which I use the Windows Phone version that has not apparently been supported or updated. Maybe it's been supported. Maybe they've done some bug fixes. I'll have to check that in the log and see how long it's been. But that's actually probably going to limit us from seeing some of the bad behavior. But it'll also give you guys a change of scenery because I mostly take the freeway. Today I'm going to take a way that kind of parallels the freeway, and we'll see how things go. 8:38's the number to beat, though. So, the topic came up. A friend of mine was watching the vlog yesterday and saw me sneeze and said, when you sneezed, I almost wanted to stop and say, God bless you. Which, she realized that was kind of a goofy way to respond, especially on the internet, to a video on the internet. But also that, saying that doesn't really do anything to help a person, and a sneeze isn't necessarily a medical issue that needs immediate attention. As I pointed out yesterday, I sneezed twice, and that usually means it's just a sneeze. If I sneeze like 3 or more times, then I get ready for having a cold because I don't usually do that. Sometimes it's just something that, I don't know, I got in my head or whatever. Well, here's an example of, this is etiquette or manners, or I forget all the terms used, but, there is a law, don't block an intersection. But, many mornings people let me in. And so one of the things I do, just as good manners, is to leave a fair amount of space. Like, there are several car lengths between me and the car ahead, and that helps us all in a number of ways. One, it leaves room for people to get in. It looks like their left rear tire is a little low. It leaves other people space to get in. If all of a sudden there's a problem with the vehicle ahead, it gives me room to maneuver around them. It gives me added stopping distance. If someone rear ends me, then I'm less likely to hit them because my brakes just have that much longer to work. It's interesting to me. People always talk about speeding, and then they talk about their reaction time, which I can demonstrate with the dollar bill trick. If you hold a dollar bill in someone's fingers, or in your fingers, and then ask, so hang it with the bottom of the dollar bill hanging through their fingers. Just use $1, find a crisp one, and say, well, if you can, I'm going to let this go, and if you can catch it before it falls through your fingers, then it's yours. What you'll find is that unless there's a tell, so like probably the very first try with each person, unless they pick up on some tell that you're about to release it, they're going to, it will fall through their fingers before they have a chance to react. Maybe it could be different with people who play a lot of video games or fighter pilots or something like that, but for the most part, that's an example of how to test reaction time. So it's interesting to me, people always say, oh, I can speed and everything, I've got really good reaction time, and the type of reaction time scale that we're demonstrating with a dollar bill, just do the math and figure out how much ground they cover at various speeds, and the difference will be at least tens of feet. And if your car overlaps another car by tens of feet, that's called an accident. In fact, it could be a very serious accident. Whereas if your cars don't overlap at all, that is not an accident. Oh wow, here's a really cool shot of a Norfolk Southern grain train. That is a grubby locomotive there. 2545. Man, that needs some paint. Probably going to get a rebuild soon. But anyway, so when we look at it, like, why do I follow not closely? Well, there are all kinds of reasons that benefit myself and others. And so a lot of things that fall into the category of etiquette or being polite are they're things that do have a known benefit. And so we've kind of institutionalized them in our society. They're best practices for people to follow. And they're such common best practices that if you don't follow them, then people are going to think you're really weird. And in fact, they might even not want to spend time hanging out with you. So a really good example of that is chewing your food with your mouth closed. I mean, I don't really want to see whatever someone else is eating being masticated. And when I've known people who chewed with their mouth open, their food was falling out of their mouth far too frequently for my taste. And oftentimes there's a bus going left of center at me. A lot of times they were also talking, and so they were just spitting out food left and right all over the place. And it's often to the point where you can even see little globs of food like on your glass or on your silverware or whatever. And I just think that's kind of disgusting. I think most people would. So yeah, best not to do that if you want other people to dine with you. The sneezing thing, I think that falls into the category. I mean, it's a blessing. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't help you. One thing it does is it helps relieve the awkward tension after someone sneezes. Sneezing is startling. If you don't believe me, go look up the baby panda startles mother panda with a sneeze video on YouTube. That's an old but good one. Quite hilarious. But this little baby panda sneezes and just scares the daylights out of mama panda. And yeah, it's the same with humans. Little baby sneezing is one of the cutest things ever. It blows their mind, and the parents think it's adorable. Well, there's a guy just running a red light. He's got a Subaru so he can drive better in the ice and snow. Doesn't help if you run red lights though. So yeah, anyway, sneezing can be startling. There's often an awkward silence, so people just came up with something to say, and there's also nothing really to do, so they bless you. They're like, oh, you're sneezing because you might have the plague or something, and you might die, so I'm going to bless you, and then you'll get into heaven or whatever. It's like, because apparently everyone who witnesses a sneeze is a priest or something. I think that's a lot the same way as anytime something really bad happens to someone. There's all this talk online of, like, when people have absolutely nothing they can do to help a situation, but they simultaneously feel bad about it, which is, well, yeah, it's a horrible tragedy. Of course you feel bad about it. Everyone feels bad about it. Maybe not extreme sociopaths, but any normal person's going to feel bad about what happened. So, yeah, there's no real need to say or do anything. We all recognize it's a hopeless situation, unless you're right there and can actively, like, administer first aid or help in some other fashion. So it really, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but everyone's always like, well, I'll pray for you. And you know what? I think it's fine to indicate that, you're thinking about someone while they're having a hard time. That's fine. But I think saying that you're praying for someone comes off as a little, it kind of implies that you think that because the situation bothers you, you offering a platitude is somehow going to make their situation better. And the evidence is clear, it's not. So if you see something like that happen, and you know what, the biggest a-hole thing to do is, like, if someone is right there in front of you having a big problem, to sit there and go, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna pray for you. Oh man, that's a pretty significant insult, I think, because otherwise, if you really cared about them, you'd be doing something to help. You'd be either helping them yourself or going and get someone who can. But that does bring to mind, every once in a while, there's a situation where someone is bringing me trivial troubles, and that might be an amusing response. So in our household, just because we wanted something to say after a sneeze, to acknowledge a sneeze. Sometimes we just say to the child, oh wow, that was a big sneeze. It's important to, I think, tell babies what's happening. Babies understand what you're saying long before they can talk. So if you tell them that they're sneezing and you show them that it's nothing to worry about, then they're probably going to be cool with it. But if you're if you're saying God bless you, that doesn't really say to the child anything about what, wow, I really cut the pie there. Yeah, that's right. Here's the Highway Patrol training facility. There are a lot of big parking lots here. This is the fairgrounds of Ohio. And, man, you can tell there's a Highway Patrol Academy near here because they love cones. I don't think they're Highway Patrol cones, though. I think they're event cones. There's a guy who sets up cones for a living. Hopefully he does other things too. Looks like traffic's flowing pretty well. But I think I might be a hero today and stop and try and get some donuts for my coworkers. I haven't done that in a while. And when I ride my bike in the summer, it makes it hard to stop and get donuts. Well, there's a police vehicle. I think it said Police Academy on it, which would make sense. I would imagine they have full police powers. There used to be a Columbus Police tow truck, and people were amazed when the tow truck would light them up for speeding or something and pull them over, but pretty much any fool with a badge can stop you anytime they want. So anyway, I haven't seen motor carrier enforcement stop a passenger vehicle, but I'm sure it can happen. So anyway, yeah, when it comes to these politeness and etiquette and stuff, I think a lot of times it does serve a useful purpose. I think a lot of our laws that make sense, they've arisen from politeness and etiquette, things like best practices while driving, and so I don't think people should just discard politeness and etiquette offhand. I think they should think about what kind of politeness and etiquette it is. Is it something that is very valuable. It's a good habit to have. It's productive and helps them do good things, or is it something that's just ridiculous and does nothing, a platitude? I'd say eliminate the platitudes from your life. Maybe even call attention to the fact that they're platitudes by saying something like, in my family, after someone sneezes, we say, "May the force be with you," which is a Jedi thing. But yeah, I'm gonna go in and get some donuts. So I'll be back to the vlog in a couple minutes.
Continuous recording will now start. GPS connected.
Alright, done picking up the donuts. They were all out of cream filled, but they had the custard filled Long Johns, so we went with those today, and then also an assortment box. So should be pretty popular around the office. I always look at buying donuts as a bit of a popularity poll with different donut types. See what people are into. So yeah, when it comes to these etiquette and stuff like that, I just look at how it helps people. It's poor etiquette to like bite your fingernails or to stick your fingers in your mouth and wipe them all over stuff. I've had people that nail biters that really like to touch my monitor, and so I'd get their gooey saliva fingerprints all over my monitor. I think that's pretty disgusting. So yeah, I think etiquette can be a really good guide on how we just go about things in our day-to-day lives. And the nice thing about etiquette is it's a suggestion, until it rises to the level of a law. They don't have, I'm glad they don't have a law that you have to say something every time someone sneezes. If it did anything, they might try to make it a law. They also make laws that are ridiculous and don't do anything either. So it's not really a good test. You're just going to have to think about it for yourself. And I think by and large, when it comes to etiquette, one of my subjects is I've been always kind of focused on online etiquette. Most people, they have terrible online etiquette. They don't do anything in a way that's respectful to anyone else's time or energy when it comes to online stuff. For example, this person here isn't staying in their lane. That's but it's also the law. But for example, a really good thing would be video call etiquette. Video calls are a pretty new thing, so it's not etiquette that your grandma's going to teach you probably. But it's still, there's etiquette nonetheless. The nice thing about etiquette is you can kind of propose, you can make your own list of etiquette rules that you think other people should consider. And if they're good, then people are going to follow them. So in a sense, it's a voluntary form of legislation, You just sit there and inform people of these standards, set a good example yourself, and if other people agree, they're going to kind of insist on those out of other people, and if the other people don't comply, then they will be ostracized for poor etiquette. It might take a lot of doing, though, because there are a lot of people out there exhibiting extremely poor etiquette on a daily basis, and people continue to interact with them. In fact, in some segments of society, or in some societies, it almost seems like disregard for etiquette is applauded. But like video cam etiquette, I would say, first of all, don't start a video call unless you send someone a quick IM first to make sure that they are available. No one likes to get, the Skype ring at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I did that to a buddy of mine accidentally a couple weeks ago. I talked about it then. That was in my vlog about setting up a Skype group call. Little Skype party foul there. And but yeah, you should IM someone and say, hey, are you free for a call? And then you should also create a new call and invite only the people who agreed to be a part of it in there. That's a thing that bugs a lot of people with SMS. There have been some software solutions to some of it, like on iPhone and stuff, and on Windows Phone, and I'm sure Android as well, where in the old days, people would just kind of spam all of their friends' SMS numbers and start up a big conversation. And it might not be a good time for getting a lot of text messages. And also, text messages used to be a lot more expensive. Now they tend to be included in the price, from what I've seen. But yeah, it was really frustrating because like at 3 a.m. a bunch of drunk people would start talking about drunk person stuff while you're trying to sleep and your phone's beeping and you don't want to turn off the ringer and everything. So now you can ignore conversations, which I do whenever I get roped into one of those, because as you saw from my SMS and secure email video, why I don't use them. Group messaging isn't really one of them, but it's kind of a nice side effect of not using it. Is just I say, hey, let's actually have this group conversation with some software that's meant to handle it instead of a hack that's really annoying for most of the people participating, apparently. But so yeah, video calls, it's a good idea to only invite the people that you want in that call, just so you're not bringing in a whole bunch of people. It's a good idea to schedule it using a calendar tool. So I've been using calendar.help. If anyone would like to jump ahead of the line, I hope this isn't a violation of their rules to say this, but there's a secret code I know, and if you go to calendar.help, you too can let Cortana schedule meetings for you if you are an Office 365, if you have an Office 365 or a I think it's a business or education account, but mine's personal and it seems to work on that account. So if you have an Office 365 account, hopefully it'll work. I know it's supposed to work with business and educational accounts. And those are times when you oftentimes have to have meetings, but go to calendar.help and then the secret word is cupcake frosting. So if you go in there and you type cupcake frosting, then you can jump over the waiting list and you can get into calendar.help. And I'm sharing this with you because it seems to work pretty well. So I don't think you're going to have a lot of trouble, but it's a bot, it's not a real person, so be prepared for some kind of, there could be some issues with it. So but yeah, so if you're going to do it, and in fact she does understand the concept of creating a video call and also a phone call and an in-person meeting. She also understands things like lunch. It's a really neat tool. If for whatever reason you don't want to do that, or you don't have the Office 365 account required, you can also go to x.ai and sign up to use Amy. I think they have a guy's name too that you can use if you want your assistant to be a man or a virtual man. I don't think they have an attack helicopter version yet, but that's a good suggestion to make. I would love to have my scheduling done by an attack helicopter personally. I think they'd be able to get stuff done. So, like they'll say, I'm just gonna hover here until you respond to my email. Don't make me use my Hellfires and my 50 caliber chain gun. So, yeah, let's see what else on video etiquette, for examples. It's a good idea to have good camera work. You know, if you've got a window behind you, draw the blinds or something, or put it off to the side so that the white balance adjusts so that people can actually see your face. Unless, of course, you're trying to interrogate someone through a video call. Then have a very bright white background, and then that will obscure your face. You can be anonymous. You can do interviews about all the government websites you've hacked, though I wouldn't really trust that as a means of securing your identity, because I'm sure you can just tweak the white balance and see your face just fine. Oh yeah, audio is one of the best things. Be really sensitive about whether or not you're typing. I mean, people in video calls with me, they get bored of the content, and instead of just saying, guys, hey, can we move this along, or am I still needed in the call, then they just start typing frantically to everyone, and it's usually on some kind of device with the microphone built into it, so it's just this maddening clickety clackety click, and then finally after like 15 minutes of it, someone says, could someone please mute their microphone? Someone is talking, but in Skype, it tells you exactly who the audio is coming from. So they should just call them out by name and say, you know, Larry, you do this every time. Please mute your mic if you're going to talk, if you're going to type. Yeah, background noise. A lot of times I do my calls from my home office, which is in my basement. It's near the furnace. It's cold this time of year. The furnace seems always to be running. It gives a lot of background noise. So I wear a headset that is designed to cut down on some of that stuff. And then I also mute whenever I'm not talking. And that prevents any typing or anything I might do that makes noise from interrupting everyone else in the call. The other big thing to do with audio, and I do not understand this for the life of me, but at my last job people did this, and at my current job people do it, is you'll get in a call and someone will just be using their puny little laptop microphone, and they will get into the call, and invariably like 5 or 6 people, I mean, what you should do in that situation is you should all gather around the laptop, and you should stand within the field of view of the camera, or at least the person speaking should move into the field of view of the camera so that other people in the remote location can see them. And you should stand like close enough that the camera is likely to, or that the audio from the microphone, that the microphone's going to pick you up, because laptop microphones are only designed to work between like 1 and 3 feet away at most. Anything over that and you're really pushing what they're designed to do. So some of them, the really nice ones like Surfaces and stuff like that, they might have a microphone array, but just because it has an array doesn't mean it'll be awesome. So yeah, but yeah, I see these people, and they, even with like speaker phones, like with a Polycom or whatever, they'll be in the call and they'll just be sitting down. I mean, it's a stand-up meeting, so first of all, they're completely disregarding the whole point of the stand-up by lounging around. Then they go and they mumble off in some corner and you can't hear them. And then I had a coworker, and everyone's like, man, I don't understand it. It's like every time I call this person, I can't hear them at all. So I stopped by the person's desk when I was in the office, and I'm like, hey, let's do a video call. I just want to, get it set up so that, we can figure out what's going on and fix it for you. So I looked, and the person was putting the video call window, she had multiple monitors, like 2 or 3, in addition to the laptop. And so the laptop was off to her extreme right side, and then the monitors were all daisy chained off to the left. And she had the video on the far left monitor, so her mouth was at least 6 to 10 feet away from the laptop, and the lid of her laptop, which is where the microphone was closed. So the reason she sounds muffled and quiet all the time is because she insists on talking. I talked with her about it. I said, oh, you're quiet because your laptop lid is closed and your mouth is like 10 or 15 feet away from the microphone. It's designed to work 1 to 3 feet away, so of course no one can hear you. And the response was not to do anything different. So, it's like someone is going to have to invent a shotgun mic USB shotgun mic that we can aim at her mouth, or else we're just never going to be able to really understand her. And so how does that play into etiquette? Well, a really good thing to do etiquette-wise is, unless you have a USB camera on a separate monitor, display the chat on the monitor. If you use a multi-monitor setup, display the chat on the monitor that has the camera and microphone on it, so that when you naturally look to the conversation to interact with people, because people tend to look at people while they're talking, then you're looking at the people while you're having the conversation. Also, if you do need to pop up a screen and you're not screen sharing, try and do that once again on the screen that has the microphone and camera. Then that way it'll be all pointed at your face, and periodically check and make sure that it's not pointed at your chin or just the top of your head or at the ceiling or whatever. This is all good webcam etiquette, and a lot of it extends over. One thing is email etiquette. I don't really care so much about it anymore, because I don't really most people seem to be using email like I am, which is really goofy, because email, like, due to the architecture of it, it has the potential to have significant delays in arrival, so it's not necessarily an instant message. It's also a lot harder for some people to set up. The configuration is pretty much taken for you, but with email, I was just helping my mom with some email problems. Her email was all misconfigured. Long story there, but yeah, it's I prefer IM just because it's easier to maintain, and it tends to have more encryption around it by default, and then it's also it's short one-liners, or maybe like a paragraph at most, so it kind of keeps the conversation rolling. It's also really hard to interrupt people in IM. You can both be actually talking about something at the same time, and people kind of develop a skill of reading a thread and reading through threads and everything. It works pretty well. But yeah, some of the email problems people have, large headers and footers. They quote unnecessary parts of the email, especially in large group conversation. It's just lazy responding in that. The whole point of putting it there is so that you can cut out all the irrelevant parts. And the thread is going to be there in the other person's mailbox if they were included on it. Sometimes you might need to include a whole thread because it's just such valuable information, but if that's the case, you really should be providing a summary of the parts that you thought were valuable, and maybe the people involved in case there's a need for a follow-up. But most people just, their email is the way they use email is tremendously wasteful. And one of the things I've found is, if you really do want to save a thread or whatever, well, first of all, I save all my outbound emails, so if you just do that, then any email thread that you reply to is going to have all the pertinent information in it. But you can just save the last one in a lot of cases, and you don't really need to save like the whole process of the conversation. Some email clients help you with that. Some help build threaded conversations. I think it works pretty well. There was a really cool app. I kind of came to Android late in the game. I'm not really using Android as my primary phone right now, still on Windows 10 mobile, mostly because I tried Android for a month solid and it was interesting, but fundamentally compared to Windows 10 it sucks. And mostly the biggest sucky part of all was just the OS, like the navigation stuff. I just read today about some managers that help you help manage your interface for starting apps, the launcher they call it. So you have a lot of choices with launchers, but a lot of them aren't what I was looking for. I found out about 2 that make it look more like Windows 10, so I might play around with those a little bit. But my hope is that, I think in May the Build conference is coming from Microsoft, and I think they're going to announce some kind of development strategy for developing for LTE devices that are always on, and they're probably going to be in a phablet form factor at the smallest and extending up through the tablet, and I think that's going to be really handy to use. So anyway, back on the etiquette with emails. So yeah, just cut everything out you can. There's a really good website called 3.sentence.es. 3 sentences. And you can even include this in your signature. And it kind of gets you to, it says, look, I'm only going to be replying to email with 3 sentences. Because the funny thing is that what I've found is that a lot of times when people respond to email, if I write a lengthy email to them, it doesn't do any good because they just pick like the first paragraph and ignore the rest of it. So if I only send 3 sentences, then that allows me to give them focus. That's something I learned. I was doing an interview with TV one time, and I did an hour-long interview standing in a cold parking lot on a day like today, an hour of answering the reporter's questions. And the story, he ended up putting me, I didn't expect I was going to get an hour because it's just a half-hour newscast, but I figured he might take some of the good nuggets from it. He ended up quoting me for 3 seconds. So I talked with some people about that. They said, yeah, if you're talking to a reporter, quick sound bites, and if you have something that you want them to use, only give them that. Like, stand there for an hour and then weave that into every response that you have. Make it absolutely clear that's the part that you want them to use. So, yeah. All right, well, yeah, so on etiquette, 3 sentences is good. And, yeah, for the most part, don't do email. Don't do drugs, don't do email. It's a waste of everyone's time. Use IM instead, or have conversations, or best of all, have video calls with remote people. And if people refuse that, it's probably because there's some reason behind them not wanting to be productive. I know it sounds weird, but if you look, sometimes you can see it. So anyway, that's it for today. I'm going to wrap up and go inside. I have donuts to distribute, so I will let you know what the least popular donut is if I can find out. I'm thinking it's probably not going to be the chocolate ones, but I never know. Seems like everyone's on a diet. Sometimes I end up having a half a box or something to take home, which I'm sure my wife would enjoy. But she'll listen to this after the donuts are either in her belly or in all my coworkers' belly. So I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.